My ex-wife humiliated me at a family dinner, so I stayed silent, collected proof of her affair, and let precision and patience end our marriage. Naomi looked right at her mother, wine glass in hand, and with a smirk that still makes my skin crawl, said it. With a man who can't even satisfy me, not likely. She even giggled afterward, like it was a harmless joke, like she hadn't just sliced my dignity open in front of her parents, her siblings, my in-laws, her friends, the entire damn room. Fork stopped moving. Her father's face tightened. One of her cousins gasped like we were on a live reality show. And there I was, staring into the flickering candlelight, hearing the blood rush in my ears like a broken fire alarm. I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I just stood up, pushed my chair back, and walked straight out into the freezing night air without looking back. My legs were moving before my mind even caught up. Somewhere behind me, someone said my name, but I didn't stop. 5 steps down the front walkway, I heard the door creak open. Then a voice. Dylan, Marcus. I turned. He looked pale, not shocked, guilty. His hands were in his pockets, but his shoulders looked like they were carrying bricks. She crossed a line tonight, he said quietly, not even trying to defend her. Then he looked up and added, I saw her last week with her ex. There it was, no warm-up, no polite hesitation, just that. I didn't flinch. Maybe I should have. Maybe a man is supposed to yell, punch something, cry, demand details. I didn't do any of that. Where? I asked. My voice came out low, like someone else was speaking. Outside a hotel in Millbrook. They were close, holding hands, laughing. I saw her kiss him before they walked inside. That kiss, that image landed harder than the dinner table blow. In a single breath, everything Naomi had been doing for months rearranged itself in my head like puzzle pieces locking into place. The late meetings, the mood swings, the petty cruelty served cold and dressed in sarcasm. Suddenly, I wasn't just a husband dealing with distance. I was a walking punchline in a private joke she shared with another man. I didn't say anything for a moment, just stood in the dark while a distant car passed by, and the wind bit through my sleeves. Can you prove it? I asked. Dylan hesitated, then nodded once. Yeah, I took photos. I didn't know what to do with them, but after what she just pulled in there, that was it. The spark, the match strike soaked, with no anger yet. Just the beginnings of a different kind of fire. The kind that doesn't burn loud, but hot, strategic, clean. If you've read this far, thank you. And if you're one of the 98% listening without subscribing, I would be insanely grateful if you did. It's a small thing, but it helps us inch closer to our first 10,000 subscribers and motivates the team to keep going all in on these stories. Back on that porch, I turned back toward the front door. I could hear laughter from inside, someone pretending nothing had happened. Naomi, probably always good at the pivot. I realized then she had humiliated me with purpose, not just to feel powerful, but to make me feel small. She wanted to provoke me, but she never expected this version of me to walk out, and the funny thing, neither did I. The porch light flickered above us, casting that sickly orange hue on Dylan's face, which looked 10 years older than it had an hour ago. He sat down on the steps like his knees gave out, and for the first time since I had known him, since college parties and Sunday football, he couldn't meet my eyes. She had been doing this for a while, man, he said, voice low and fast, like someone trying to confess before they lost the nerve. It wasn't just some lunch or bump in at a grocery store. I didn't speak. I just sat next to him, let the cold gnaw at my hands while he unspooled the rope. Last Thursday, I was grabbing takeout at that Thai place on 6th near the Marriott, he began. I saw her across the street. She didn't see me. She was walking out of the lobby with him. He rubbed his palms together, a nervous tick. She wasn't just smiling, she was beaming like the version of her that disappeared 2 years ago. I still didn't speak. They were holding hands. He kissed her neck. They looked like a couple, Marcus, not like two people sneaking around, like they belonged together. There it was. Not just a fling, not just sex, intimacy, that brand of quiet ownership you can't fake. That's what she gave him, what she stopped giving me long ago. I exhaled slowly and finally turned to him. Can you prove it? Dylan's head dropped. Yeah, he said, pulling out his phone. I didn't know what to do when I saw it. I felt sick, but I took these. He swiped through his gallery and held the screen out toward me. The first image stopped me cold. Naomi in her navy work blazer reaching for a man's hand as they exited the Marriott side entrance. The timestamp was visible. Thursday, 6:43 post-meridian, clear as day. The next image was worse. They were in his car parked across the street, her laughing at something he said, lips parted, leaning in. I recognized the expression. She used to wear it for me. I took the phone from Dylan and zoomed in slowly until her face filled the screen. No guilt, no hesitation, just joy. It wasn't the betrayal that hit hardest. It was how easy it seemed for her. I handed the phone back. "Send them to me. What are you going to do?" I shook my head, eyes fixed on a patch of dead lawn at the foot of the steps. Not sure yet, but yelling, screaming, fighting for answers. I turned to him finally. "That's her game. Mine is going to be different." He swallowed. "Not at once. I will help. Whatever you need." I believed him. Not because he was my brother-in-law, but because I saw it. Genuine remorse and maybe a little gratitude that someone was finally going to clean up the rot he had been pretending not to smell. Somewhere behind us, laughter erupted from inside the house again. Naomi's voice cut through, sharp and smug. I stood up and walked to my car. I didn't need to hear anything else tonight. I had what I needed: evidence, motive, witness. Now all I needed was silence and time, and I planned to use both like a scalpel. It is wild how your brain starts replaying everything the second the truth clicks into place. Like someone hit rewind on your life and handed you a remote labeled "watch again," this time without the lies. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it spin like it could drown out the echo of her voice. Not likely. But what kept me awake wasn't the dinner. It was everything that came before. The past 6 months weren't a slow drift. They were a deliberate retreat. She didn't fade like a tired partner. She peeled away like wallpaper, one mocking smile at a time. She used to say, "You're overthinking again," whenever I asked if something was wrong, but she never answered the question. Just made me the problem. And I bought it. The late meetings started small. 1 Tuesday a month, then 2, then client dinners suddenly sprung on me at 5:40 post-meridian, just as I was plating whatever half-decent dinner I had scraped together. She used to text during the day, "Little things love you. How's work? Miss your face." Now I got emojis, a thumbs up, maybe a dry, cool, if she even bothered to reply. She stopped touching me around October. I remember because it was cold and I reached for her one night in bed and she curled away like I had rolled over with a knife in my hand. I remember the way she looked at me when I asked if she was okay. Not annoyed, not sad, pity. That was when I knew something fundamental had shifted, but I buried it under routines, laundry, meal prep, bills, pretending we were still a we. I convinced myself it was a phase. Now with Dylan's photos, that phase had a name, a location, a timestamp, and suddenly all the jokes she had made. "Don't wait up. Try not to burn the house down while I am out. At least someone appreciates me." They stopped sounding like sarcasm. They were code mockery dressed in domestic linen. I sat up in bed that night. Didn't turn on the light. Didn't grab my phone. Just stared at her outline next to me, back turned, breathing soft, peaceful. I thought about how she looked at him in that car. About how she weaponized my silence in public to wound me deeper than any scream ever could. There was nothing left to salvage, but there was still something left to build on the ashes. I walked into my home office, closed the door, and opened my old leather-bound notebook, the one I used back when I was launching my business, making plans nobody believed in, the one I hadn't touched since we settled down. I wrote one line at the top of the page, "When in silence, destroy without raising your voice." Then I made a list: separate finances, lock down passwords, check her credit card history, back up everything, photos, messages, receipts, attorney. I added a final bullet but left it blank. I would fill it in later. I wasn't planning a divorce yet. I was planning truth. Not the kind that screams in courtrooms. The kind that hits in silence, like a surgical strike. Because you don't dismantle a lie with rage. You dismantle it with reality. Slow, calculated, undeniable. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. The next morning I woke before Naomi. I heard the water running in the bathroom, her humming something tuneless behind the door. She always did that. Hummed when she thought she was safe. I sat at the kitchen table, mug of coffee untouched, laptop open, cursor blinking in a document titled Exit Strategy. By 8:07 ante-meridian, I was on the phone with a law firm, not a high-profile one, nothing flashy, just a boutique practice 3 towns over that specialized in silent separations for high-net-worth individuals. Their tagline was poetic, almost smug, sometimes quiet is louder than chaos. A woman named Tehran answered. Calm voice, no fluff. "I am not filing yet," I told her. "I am just preparing quietly." She didn't ask why, just replied, "Then let's make sure your foundation is fireproof." That's when it started. The quiet shift, not dramatic. No suitcases by the door, no shouting matches in the hallway. just digital keystrokes and document scans. While Naomi blow-dried her hair down the hall, I began unspooling the knots of our financial life. Joint checking emptied half into a new account under my name at a separate bank. I kept it just below the threshold that would trigger alerts. Shared credit card removed my name first, then requested transaction logs. No confrontation, just paper trails. Amazon household account disabled. Apple ID sharing terminated. Then came the passwords. She didn't know I still had access to her email recovery inbox. Years ago, she asked me to help her reset a few things during a vacation. I remembered the backup email address she used, once she thought I had forgotten. I didn't use it to read messages. Not yet. I just used it to map her digital geography. And that's where it showed up. The Millennium Hotel twice. Same one Dylan mentioned. One charge was for a weekday lunch at the restaurant downstairs. The second was the room itself. Midweek, afternoon check-in, 4-hour window. She didn't even bother to hide it. It was under her name. She never thought I had check. Or maybe she thought I would see it and do nothing. I backed up everything. Every billing statement, calendar entry, phone bill. Made copies of the household documents too. Deeds, insurance, loan terms. Scanned and encrypted. Dropped on a password-protected universal serial bus drive I labeled Family Budget First Quarter. I even created a folder on my cloud storage named Taxes and hid everything inside it because nothing screams invisible like something labeled 2021 Form 1099 MISC. Then I installed a clean operating system on my old laptop and formatted a burner phone I kept in the garage for emergencies. No one knew that number existed, not even Naomi. I synced it with nothing. It would serve one purpose, the extraction phase. By the time Naomi walked into the kitchen and said, "No breakfast today," I was logged out of everything and smiling. "Running late," I replied. She didn't notice the way I looked at her. Not yet. The subtle calibration had begun. Me pulling back, me taking stock, me slipping into a role she had never seen before. Because when the rules change, you don't announce it. You just start playing a different game. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed at 1:13 ante meridian. Naomi was fast asleep, curled up like a content house cat, while I was in the garage with the overhead light off, sitting in the driver's seat of my old truck, staring at my inbox. The subject line read, "You ready, Dylan?" Attached were 6 images, high, no motion blur, no ambiguity. I opened the first one and felt my chest tighten, not from shock, but from confirmation. Naomi was stepping out of the side entrance of the Millennium Hotel. Not in business attire, not in a rush, just casual loose hair, no wedding ring. She was laughing. Her hand was in the crook of his arm. The second photo showed her outside his car, a sleek black sedan, same one she used to call cheap and midlife crisis wife back when she was still pretending to hate him. She leaned into the open door, laughing again. Too close, his hand on her hip. Third photo, the door closing behind them as they entered the hotel. Timestamp, 2:46 post-meridian, a Tuesday. I enlarged it, studied her face. The same face that once lit up at my stupid jokes. The same eyes that used to hold mine across crowded rooms. But in that frame, she wasn't just gone. She looked happy. I didn't feel rage, not anymore. Just a deep, unnervingly steady pulse of clarity. She was already gone. Had been for a long time. The version of Naomi I married didn't exist anymore. She devolved into something else. Something colder, sharper, self-righteous, and slippery. She didn't just cheat. She erased me while smiling. I went back inside the house, booted up the laptop, and dropped the photos into a folder titled, "Read Me Private." Then I added a few extras, screenshots of the hotel bookings from her credit card history, a calendar entry she didn't delete, a receipt for room service, 2 entrees, 1 bottle of Merlot, all time-stamped, all real. I printed the best 3 images, chose the ones with the clearest angles, not sexual, just intimate, worse, the kind that told a bigger truth than any bedroom shot could. She wasn't just cheating, she trusted him. That trust was what burned most. I slid the photos into a large manila envelope. Inside, I added a printed note. "Naomi, read this alone. Then ask yourself, did I really think he had never find out?" M. On the front, I wrote in black marker, "For Naomi. Read alone. No threats, no guilt trip, no theatrics, just evidence, just truth and a whisper of something she had never seen coming. Not yet." The restaurant was one of those old money places that served steak so tender you could slice it with a butter knife, and waiters, who called everyone sir or ma'am like their salaries depended on it. Private room, 12 guests, linen napkins folded like origami on top of each charger plate. The kind of place Naomi loved, controlled elegance, just enough flash to make her feel seen. Her father's 70th. Big deal. Everyone dressed to impress. Naomi wore that emerald green dress she used to save for anniversary dinners. Irony wasn't just thick, it was tailored. She floated around like royalty, kissing cheeks, tossing her hair, calling everyone darling with that polished socialite glaze. And me, I was calm, cordial, smiling just enough. The envelope was already in place, slid discreetly into her designer tote earlier that morning, right before she left for her blowout appointment. I knew she would not notice it until the next day. That was the point. Tonight wasn't about exposure. Tonight was about position. The evening unfolded like a play. Wine poured, appetizers served, polite laughter, clinks of crystal glasses. Naomi sat next to me, her hand occasionally brushing mine, performative affection. She didn't know I was counting down the minutes like I used to time runs back in college. Only this time, there was no finish line, there was only the shift. She stood to make a toast. Of course she did. Naomi had always been a master of these moments. Voice clear, posture perfect, charm dialed to 10. To the man who taught me loyalty, hard work, and never settling, she said, raising her glass toward her father who beamed with pride. May we all age as gracefully and love as fiercely, fiercely. I almost laughed. Instead, I raised my glass and took a sip, never breaking eye contact with Dylan across the table. He gave the faintest nod. That's when I knew. He delivered the second envelope to his father. Not the photos, just the receipts, the one showing Naomi's name linked to the hotel room, the charges, the weekday timestamps. Naomi didn't know it yet, but that toast was the last time she would speak to her family as the center of their admiration. I scanned the table. Her sister smiled politely. Her husband looked bored. Her father beamed for now. Her mother dabbed at her eye, emotionally moved by her daughter's performance. I watched them all, memorizing their reactions, faces I would see again soon, but from a different angle. The real show hadn't started, but the curtain was already rising. The valet had just pulled up Naomi's car, a sleek white luxury coupe she insisted on buying last spring as a symbol of independence. She was glowing from her own speech, basking in the praise of a crowd still charmed by her curated image. Her father had hugged her twice. Her mother had kissed her on the cheek and whispered, "So proud of you." She was at her peak. Dylan caught her just as she opened the driver's side door. "Naomi," he said, stepping into her path, hands in his pockets. "You should talk to Marcus." She blinked, thrown off. "About what?" His voice was low, steady. "Because if you don't, the truth might talk louder than you expect." She tilted her head, gave a tight laugh. "Is this about tonight?" "He is just moody. He gets like this when I outshine him." Dylan didn't move. "This is not about tonight." She looked past him toward the other guests filtering out of the restaurant. "God, you are starting to sound like him," she said, brushing imaginary lint from her dress. He didn't budge. "I'm serious, Naomi." That made her pause. The shift in tone. Dylan was not known for confrontation. He had always been the peacekeeper, this soft brother, as she liked to joke at his expense. "You're acting like he is dying or something," she muttered. "No, but something is." She stared at him. That smugness wavered just for a beat, a microsecond where uncertainty cracked through the lacquered confidence she wore like perfume. Then she scoffed. "Whatever this is, it sounds dramatic. Marcus is not going anywhere. He is predictable." Dylan looked at her like he pitied her. "You have confused silence for submission." And with that, he stepped back, hands still in his pockets, eyes level. "He is already gone." Naomi, you just have not noticed the door closing yet. She got in the car, slammed it harder than she meant to, and adjusted her mirror 3 times before pulling off. The smile she wore for the drive home was forced now, stretched too wide, lips too thin. In the rear view, the night looked the same, but something in her gut itched, something she couldn't name yet. And for the first time in months, Naomi wondered if maybe, just maybe, she had miscalculated. Naomi woke late, later than usual. Sun already breaking through the blinds, casting those warm, harmless stripes across the bedroom carpet. She stretched like nothing was wrong, like the world still revolved around her voice and her image and her clever little toasts. The space beside her was cold. She called out casually at first, "Marcus!" No answer, no sound of the shower, no shuffling in the kitchen, no coffee brewing. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, just a calendar reminder. No text from Marcus, no missed calls, not even one of his usual dry little good morning messages. She walked barefoot into the kitchen, hair messy, robe loose. Expecting the usual, him hunched over his laptop pretending to work while sipping over steeped tea. Instead, she found nothing. No plate, no mug, no laptop. Just one thing centered on the kitchen table like it had been measured with a ruler. A manila envelope labeled in his handwriting, for Naomi, read alone. She stared at it for a few seconds too long, like her brain refused to accept it was not a joke. Some dramatic, overly poetic gesture, some guilt trip, but her stomach dropped. Cold. Instant. She opened it. First, the photos, not blurry, not deniable. Her, him, outside the Millennium, leaning into the car, laughing. Second, receipts, credit card statements, room number, dinner charges, the timestamp circled twice, weekday afternoons. Third, the letter, not typed, handwritten, crisp black ink on thick white paper, just 3 lines. You humiliated me in front of your family, so I gave your brother a choice. Protect you or protect the truth. Now you get to live with both. She reread it twice, then sat down slowly like her knees were not entirely working. Dylan, of course. She reached for her phone, fingers shaking slightly now. No new messages. She called Marcus. Voicemail. She texted, "We need to talk. This is not funny. No read receipt." He turned them off. She called again, straight to voicemail. Panic crept in, ugly, unfamiliar. Not the kind she could dress up with a smirk or control with a well-timed sigh. Real panic, the kind that clawed at the ribs. She called Dylan. He declined. She called again. Nothing. Suddenly, the silence of the house was not peaceful. It was hostile. Every tick of the wall clock sounded louder. The empty chair at the dining table felt like a spotlight. She ran upstairs, checked his closet, half empty, checked the garage. His truck was gone. She turned back to the envelope, heart thudding now. Naomi had always believed control came from volume, from presence, from being sharper, quicker, more charming, louder. But this was not loud. This was surgical. And that terrified her in a way no shouting match ever had. She tried him 12 more times that day. First with urgency, then with rage, then with tears. Each call went straight to voicemail. Each message was left unread. Her last one was the weakest, just 2 words, "Please talk." Still nothing. By late afternoon, the panic had calcified into something more dangerous, shame laced with desperation, the kind that doesn't scream anymore, just sits there in your throat, bitter and thick. She didn't go home. She drove straight to her parents' house. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel like it might anchor her to something real. She rehearsed lines the whole way, excuses, half-truths, maybe even a performance of vulnerability. She would cry if she had to, if it bought her time. But Dylan answered the door. Not her mother, not her father, just Dylan. And he didn't smile, didn't move aside, didn't say hello. He just looked at her like a nurse watching a patient realize they were the cause of their own illness. "Where is he?" she asked. Her voice cracked, but not out of sadness, out of fury wrapped in disbelief. "You helped him do this." He didn't flinch, just leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. "You should talk to Mom and Dad," he said. They opened the envelope. Her breath caught. "You gave it to them. They deserve to know who they were clapping for last night." She took a step forward. He didn't move, still blocking the entrance. "Why didn't you stop him?" she snapped. Dylan looked at her, tired now. Not angry, just done. "I didn't stop you either." Silence. He let that hang in the air until it sucked the oxygen right out of her lungs. Her eyes darted behind him. She could hear faint voices from the living room. Probably her parents, maybe her sister, the whole inner circle. And they knew. They knew now. "Does Dad think less of me?" she asked almost in a whisper. Dylan blinked. "He thinks less was all you ever gave Marcus." And then, like a doorman of a club she no longer belonged to, he gently, almost politely, closed the door in her face. She stood there for a moment, staring at the grain of the wood, trying to process what had just happened. Naomi always believed her charm could fix anything, that she could talk her way through any mess, gloss over any crack. But there was no stage left. No one left to clap. Only the echo of her choices and the growing understanding that this time she could not dress the wound with a well-timed smile. The collapse was not loud, it was complete. The restaurant was dim, quiet, tucked inside a side street with no sign out front, just a single copper lantern flickering above the door. The kind of place you only found if someone told you where to look. Marcus sat at a corner table with 2 guests, Dylan and a man in a navy blue suit whose tie knot was so symmetrical it looked photoshopped in real life. The attorney, Langford, 3 plates, 2 glasses of wine. No celebration, just finality plated and served. They didn't speak much, nothing left to rehash, just a quiet acknowledgement passing between them like survivors in a lifeboat. No drama, no pain, just air finally cleared. At the end of the meal, the waiter approached with a tray that held no dessert, just a single manila envelope. Neat, crisp, familiar. Marcus took it gently, nodded, and slid it across the table to Langford, who opened it, double-checked the contents, then passed it back without a word. Inside, finalized divorce papers, a certified cashier's check made out to Naomi, a typed letter signed and notarized stating Marcus's formal relinquishment of their shared property, minus the items he had already moved. In one note, handwritten at the bottom of the financial disclosure page, "I left you more than you deserved, and less than you thought you would keep." Marcus didn't smile, just took one last sip of wine and nodded to the waiter. The job was done. The game was over. Across town, Naomi sat curled on her white leather sectional, nursing a half-finished glass of Pinot Grigio, scrolling absent-mindedly through her inbox. She had not left the house all day. The silence was not peaceful anymore. It was punishment. Then the email came. Subject line, final documentation. No body text, just the attachments, scanned copies of the signed documents, and a tracking number for the originals which were en route by courier. In one line, typed clean at the bottom of the cover letter, "Not every man argues. Some just walk and take the ground with them." She stared at it for a long time. Read it again and again. There would be no fight, no pleading texts to expose, no angry voicemails to twist into a performance, no apology to manipulate, no emotional explosion to sink her claws into. Just absence, complete, surgical, absolute. He had not just left, he had vacuumed out her spotlight and handed it to reality. She didn't cry. There were no tears left. Only the sound of her own breathing in an empty house filled with things she once believed made her untouchable. The curtain did not fall. It vanished, and the stage went.